It's a dark day in America. They say that history repeats itself. But the truth is, this is a mischaracterization. History does not repeat itself. Human behavior repeats itself. Human psychology remains largely unchanged. And methods in which elites accumulate wealth and power are recycled and used again by elites who understand human history and understand human psychology. But the average person on the street, they don't understand human history, let alone the history of their own people, their own country. The average man on the streets in the United States of America, in England, anywhere in the free world, is tragically unaware of how similar their own psychology is to the average person on the streets in Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Within every one of us is the capacity to be a monster. And that self-evident truth, unrealized, unreflected upon, can lead to the most disastrous outcomes. Horrors that the average person simply can't imagine in their wildest dreams, which will one day become their wildest reality, their wildest nightmares. If you want to take away liberty, how is that done? Does a dictator emerge and declare himself all-powerful? Does he declare, if you speak out against him, you will be murdered because he is evil? That he must take away your weapons because he is evil? That he must take away your rights to fair trial because he is evil? Or when totalitarianism emerges, when fascism emerges, when dictatorships emerge, do they take what they would declare to be the moral high ground? If you want to take away someone's free speech in the modern world, first take away the speech of Nazis. First take away the speech of people we in society agree hold grotesque beliefs. Silence the most racist, the most hateful amongst us. And then expand the definition. So what starts as Richard Spencer becomes everyone else. What starts as hashtag punch a Nazi, silence a few people that hold grotesque beliefs, becomes everyone who is to the right of being a progressive. Label everyone, no matter who they are. Milo Yiannopoulos, it doesn't matter if he's gay, if he's married to a black man. Ben Shapiro, establishment shill aside. It doesn't matter. Label, get the authority to silence Nazis, and then expand the definition of what a Nazi is, and that is how you take away people's speech. Because that allows a tyrant to claim a moral high ground. A tyrant doesn't come out with an evil laugh. A tyrant doesn't admit that they are on the wrong side of history, that they are evil, that they are malevolent. A tyrant always declares to have the moral high ground. If you want to take away people's gun rights, wait for a bad incident to occur. Wait for a school shooting. And then as soon as that school shooting occurs, regardless of the actual causes, the breakdown of mental health, or the innate danger in giving away gun rights, declare that you speak for the murdered children. That you have the moral high ground because by confiscating people's weapons, you are protecting children from monsters with guns. But who will protect the children when tyranny is fully implemented and their parents don't have weapons to defend them? And if you want to silence speech on the internet, create a straw man. Declare certain people to be hateful. Declare certain people dangerous, promoters of conspiracy theories that are false, not because anyone looked through the information, but because authority declared those conspiracy theories to be false. Wage a public campaign using children and state how grotesque it is, how horrible it is that this person, this conspiracy theorist, could question that children were killed at Sandy Hook. It doesn't matter if what you're stating is true or not, or what they were stating is true or not. Just let the public be aware of how grotesque their actions were. Because then you could take away their speech. But once their speech goes, you've set the precedent. And just like with free speech, where you expand the definition of who a Nazi is, just like with gun rights, where first you ban semi-automatic weapons, or first you ban automatic weapons, then semi-automatic weapons, eventually handguns, you take away the right to carry. With the internet, you ban Alex Jones. And then after that, you'll just expand the definition of who's out there promoting conspiracy theories, which is really anything that goes against the political establishment, anything that could be a threat to those in power. You expand the definition of what hate speech is. How dare you stand against open immigration, against illegal immigration? Is that because you're xenophobic? Is that because you hate people from the third world? It must be. You should be banned. How dare you question the narrative of the establishment? And today, something bone-chilling happened. Something that should frighten all people who pine to be free to their core, regardless of what you think about Alex Jones or his beliefs. Because today, in a span of 12 hours, blatant collusion took place amongst monopolistic corporations. Within 12 hours, Alex Jones was purged, removed from Facebook, removed from YouTube, removed from Apple, removed from Spotify. Collusion within 12 hours. And you say, these are private corporations. They have the right to do what they want. Then why do they receive artificial government protection? Why, under the Communication Decency Act, are they not responsible for anything third parties post on their platforms? Because if the government was against this censorship, they wouldn't provide this artificial protection to these corporations who are actually operating in a corporate government partnership. Now, for those of you not aware, the definition of fascism is a partnership between government and corporations and the silencing of political opposition. That fits the definition of what we are seeing happen today. Because all the government would have to do to stop political-based censorship would be to stop providing artificial protection to big tech monopolies. I repeat, the government does not have to come in and break up these big tech companies. The government would simply have to stop providing extra and artificial protection for these big tech monopolies. Because one amendment to the Communication Decency Act, which would simply read, in order to receive artificial protection, extra protection from the government, so that big tech companies such as Facebook are not responsible and cannot be sued, that's why they have this protection, for for posts made by third parties on their platforms in order to continue to get that artificial protection from lawsuits. They would have to opt into an agreement to be a public utility under the condition that because they are getting artificial protection for what is posted on their platform, that they cannot censor anyone posting on their platform. If they want to censor, then they forfeit their artificial protection and they are responsible for what third parties post on their platform. And just like that, with the removal of artificial government protection, all of this political censorship would come to an end. Simple, right? But they're not going to do that, because what we are seeing is a partnership between the establishment, between government and corporations to silence political opposition. These people don't care about hate speech. Sarah Jeong, an editorial board member at the New York Times, was outed this week of having a long history, making countless numbers, more than you could count on your fingers, of extremely racist tweets targeting white people. She essentially tweeted that she would be in favor of white genocide. Yet she has not been removed from Twitter, because that's not considered hate speech, because that fits into the narrative that is being pushed by the mainstream media. The narrative, the mainstream media, the political establishment, social networking giants, that white people are the cause of all the problems afflicting American society, that white people have been the oppressors. So you can call for white genocide on these platforms, and that's okay. But if Roseanne does something as simple as making fun of the way Valerie Jarrett looks, comparing her to a character from the Planet of the Apes, now you might not like that joke, but that's far from calling for genocide. Well, she will have her show taken off air. But Sarah Jeong calls for genocide of whites, much worse than making fun of the way someone looks. And she is not suspended from Twitter, and she continues to work for the heartblood, the epicenter of establishment media, the New York Times, where the big establishment media, which is controlled by 5 or 6 corporations that control 90% of everything we see, well, they'll continue to take their talking points from the New York Times and Sarah Jeong. So then someone like Candace Owens, a black, female, conservative woman, decides to show the rampant hypocrisy coming from this political establishment, this corporate government partnership working in unison, working together to silence political opposition. So Candace Owens tweets out, in her own words, the same exact tweets that were tweeted out by New York Times editorial board member Sarah Jeong, except where Sarah Jeong referenced white people, Candace Owens replaced those references with black people and Jewish people. And what happened? Candace Owens had her account suspended from Twitter. Because even though the mainstream, the establishment, is telling you that you cannot be racist against white people because white people hold institutional power, the truth is the progressive left, which pushes a narrative that white people are the cause of all of the problems in society, uses institutional power against white people. The only group that it's okay to use institutional power against. So you could go on Twitter and you could call for genocide against white people. And the progressive Hollywood left, Hollywood, which is controlled by the progressives, can push as much anti-white propaganda as they like. They could create shows called Dear White People. The New York Times could put out articles explaining why a writer wouldn't allow his black children to play with white children. Tens of thousands of college professors could self-identify as cultural Marxist, and they could continue to push the narrative that white people are the cause of all of the problems in society. Because the progressive left controls Hollywood, they control academia, they control social media, they control the mainstream media, and they have decided that they will gain their power by demonizing, by using institutional power against white people, and they will tell people that it's okay to be racist against white people because white people are oppressing you, white people are the oppressors, as all the institutional power is actually being used to oppress white people. By the way, because I am speaking truth and people will twist these words, I would like to state openly that all racism directed against African Americans, against Hispanics, against any group of people is unacceptable, just as racism against white people is unacceptable. But this is not about racism. This is about the establishment promoting a narrative and using that narrative to silence political opposition and gain power, to expand government power. A partnership between government and corporations to silence political opposition. The very definition of fascism. And speaking of Candace Owens, just today, black conservative woman, herself and her partner at Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, were out to lunch where they were attacked. Charlie Kirk was physically assaulted. He had a drink thrown on him by violent leftists. We remember Maxine Waters telling people it's okay to go out onto the streets to harass Sarah Huckabee Sanders, to harass members of the Trump administration, to harass anyone with right-leaning political ideology because they have dehumanized people on the right wing of the political spectrum. And that dehumanization has been used to convince the layman, your everyman on the street, that it is okay to initiate violence against people with certain political views. It started as hashtag punch a Nazi. And then they expanded the definition of what a Nazi is. They convinced people that they are fighting against fascists. But remember what I said at the beginning of this video. History does not repeat itself, but human behavior repeats itself. Human psychology remains the same, and elites recycle methods used by elites historically to gain wealth and power. And now, the political establishment is silencing freedom of speech under the guise of hate speech, under silencing people from promoting conspiracy theories. They are deplatforming people like Alex Jones overnight. Regardless of what you think of him, that doesn't matter. They are purging people from the internet. And people on the streets have been mobilized to attack people that hold different political beliefs. And this has been done through a well-orchestrated strategic plan of dehumanization, convincing people that they're fighting fascists. But fascists are people who partner with corporations and use that government that partners with corporations and uses that partnership to silence political dissent. And fascists go out onto the streets and use physical intimidation like we saw against Candace Owens, like we saw against Sarah Huckabee Sanders, like we saw against Mitch McConnell, like we see exercised routinely on college campuses. At UC Berkeley, they use physical intimidation to silence the individual liberty and the free speech of people who disagree with them. But the people who are doing the attacking have been convinced they're fighting against fascists, not understanding that they are being manipulated, that human behavior is being manipulated, that their psychology is being manipulated, and they are actually being turned into the fascist while being convinced that they're fighting against fascism. Because in Nazi Germany, Hitler did not say that he was evil and that you needed to support his evil agenda. Hitler gained the support of the people of Germany by convincing them that they had been oppressed by the Jewish population. Hitler told the people of Germany that Jews were the oppressors. Therefore, the people of Germany were not being oppressors themselves. They were fighting back against oppression. Just as the people who take to the streets, who silence free speech on college campuses, who attack Candace Owens, a black conservative woman, they themselves are the oppressors. They themselves have been turned into the fascists, but they have been convinced because their psychology has been manipulated that they are fighting against fascism. Today is a very dark day in America, and I want you to take note of every so-called freedom lover who does not stand up for the free speech of InfoWars and Alex Jones, no matter what you think about what they say. That's not the point. You are allowing tyranny to creep in. The definitions of what is hate speech, of what is a conspiracy theory, will expand, and anyone that challenges the authority of those in power will be purged. And if you study what happened in Nazi Germany, if you study what happened in the Soviet Union, if you study what happened in Mao under China, if you study what happened under Pol Pot in Cambodia, you will understand that what first starts with dehumanization, dehumanization is used to take an alleged moral high ground, which is used to take away individual liberty, which is used to silence political opposition, will eventually turn to straight violence and bloodshed, false trials, the removal of fair trials, and the eventual execution of all people that stand up against authoritarianism. Please share this link before it's too late. If you support my message for as little as $1 monthly, you can support me at www.patreon.com. Freedom isn't free, so let's fight for it.